I see we have our two next speakers here with us on our virtual stage, Greg and Justin. Thank you so much for joining us today. Greg, I'd love to over to you to introduce yourself and tell us about your role at USAA.
So I'm currently the Senior Marketing Officer here at USAA for our life insurance company. I've been with the company for 12 years now, have held a variety of roles, one of which was running our MarTech portfolio for a couple of years, and actually had the good fortune and opportunity to work with Justin and the Accenture team for those years. So I'm really happy to be part of the conversation today. As we all know, digital transformation is at the forefront of pretty much everything that all of our businesses are doing. So thanks for having me.
So Justin Sanderson here. I'm part of now Accenture Song. I'm one of our financial services leads. Have spent the last 6 years or so of my career in financial services. Been at Accenture a while. I took a brief break to go be CMO of a small bank, and came back. And not happy to be here. Thanks for having me, and excited to talk about experience.
Fantastic. It's my dynamic duo down in Texas. So howdy to both of you. All right, so the two of you really have a lot of visibility into how the world's leading brands across the financial services industry are driving the most advanced customer experiences. Let's set the stage, Greg, with you at USAA. Will you talk about the different divisions at USAA and kind of the unique way that the company is structured?
Sure, happy to do that. So we're actually approaching our 100-year birthday on June 20th. USAA will turn 100 years old. And we started as a property and casualty company. We started by 25 military officers who couldn't get insurance coverage. So they pooled their funds and started an auto insurance company. And over the years, we've added a bank. We had an investment company, which we have sold off. We have a life insurance company. And we've grown to just over 13 million members we serve the military community and their families with a specific focus on improving and ensuring their financial security. So you can imagine with a very robust organization, as I mentioned, we've got a bank, we have an auto insurance and a home insurance company, a life division, and then we've got shared services, of which marketing is one of those, sitting at the center. And our challenge is trying to show up as one coordinated organization for our members, because we've got one app, we've got one website, we have multiple call centers, but it's all coming through one 800 number. So the challenge is really to orchestrate all of these experiences across every single interaction so that, again, we're one USAA, and it is not an easy task.
Certainly, and bringing all of those key stakeholders to the table to get alignment on a customer data strategy. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, actually, it's one of the, so as I mentioned earlier, I ran our MarTech portfolio for a few years. And one of the biggest challenges, and one of the areas that, if I could do it all over again, was getting better C-suite alignment. We had great buy-in from our head of marketing and experience and the CEO. And I'd say even our line of business presidents were in agreement that we should move forward on a consolidated strategy. But the inner workings of the data integration that would be required, the prioritization across all of the technology portfolios to make sure that we were lining up and sequencing implementation of something as large as your content management system, your CDP, even journey orchestration. It was just a very complex and cumbersome challenge. It's one of the main reasons why I sought Accenture to come in and help us to orchestrate and to help build out that roadmap that would be required to get that executive council level and C-suite buy-in. So it probably took a year longer than I would have liked it to, but eventually we did get everyone on board.
Justin, is this common across the financial services industry? And then talk to us about what that looked like to step in and help move this forward at USAA.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely common in the industry. It's more complex than other industries, right? So when I look at, one of the fun things for me about working in financial services is, in my opinion, a lot of the hard work's been done as these aspirational brands that, Accenture works with, define retail experiences, and, like Versace, what Versace wants to do with customers, or Shiseido, what they want to do with customers. so I get to step in and kind of take those visions and work with clients to make them work inside of the construct of financial services, which has unique needs and regulatory considerations, et cetera. And so to Greg's point, our view, and I think every consulting partner or agency will say the same thing, your experiences elsewhere shape your expectations for the brand you're interacting with every day. We call those liquid expectations. And so every financial services company's grappling with that. How do I deliver on this experience that's personalized, that and helps drive value using the data that I have, using the data I have that I can use, and some of the work isn't sexy. Like it's back end data work to make sure you can go do the shiny object isn't fun to talk about. So you have to always kind of point back to the use cases and the business experiences, the value, et cetera, that you're trying to drive. So it's common. I think, one of the coming into USAA, that's, I would say this even if Greg isn't on the phone, like every partner wants to work with USAA, just given the reputation, the character of the brand and the people. And so it was fantastic to get to go work with Greg and his team. And I say this often, we learn as much in those engagements from our partners as hopefully our partners learn from us around how we can be relevant, how we can help clients drive value, et cetera. So happy to elaborate on any of that, but to Greg's point, the change management aspect of it starts by getting the right people engaged soon, helping them shape that vision and then buy into that vision, and then ultimately hold hands to go achieve that vision.
Yeah, to elaborate on that, actually, in terms of, where are you seeing success? How are you getting folks who have different goals and objectives together in one common vision?
Yeah, I think the companies that are seeing the most success are companies that I would say are focusing on, if you had a technical architecture in front of you, I would call it a vertically integrated use case. So where companies struggle is they say, hey, I've got this piece of technology. I need to go incrementally implement this piece of technology, and they go spend money and time, et cetera. And then they look up and they haven't actually enabled an experience or a value driving activity for their company. They've just done better with the technology. And so I think the way USAA approached it, where they said, hey, we have a set of things we want to go do. It requires an integrated experience architecture that has data, it has an orchestration layer, it has a channel activation layer. It's got all the necessary things you need to go see something real happen in the market. And so that's how we oriented with the team, and that's frankly how we orient with a lot of our clients is what for those use cases, what's that vertically integrated set of solutions that you can bring together to go drive that use case. And then the other piece that's oftentimes takes a back seat is the operators or the users of that set of capabilities in the future. One, it's good to have them involved early on, just from a change management standpoint. Two, it's also good to think about how this experience architecture is going to enable new types of interactions. So, one of the things you don't want to do is just lift and shift everything you did previously from a campaign perspective, because now you've got capabilities that you can do meaningfully different things. And so it's fun to work with those teams as they start the juices start flowing of all these cool things they can do that they couldn't do before. And so having them, in that process as well is beneficial.
Knowing what you know now, what are some key initiatives you'd tell companies to focus on to stay ahead of their competition and remain innovative?
I mean, I think, Greg, I think you and I would say the same thing. We would just substitute one word. I would say focus on the customer, and you're going to say focus on the member, probably.
You got it. That's exactly right. I mean,
so go ahead.
It's been so interesting for me because, obviously with the direct to consumer model, USAA has always been focused on the member. And at times we have to remind ourselves that we need the employee experience has to be at parity with the member experience, because it's either the people who are doing the work behind the scenes digitally or the MSRs on the phone. Like, we've got to make the job easy for them so they can provide the world-class service that our members expect. But our members are at the center of every decision that we make. And I worked at a couple of companies before, and clearly we're in a for-profit business here. We have to make money to invest to drive the future of the organization. But I've seen this company make decisions time and time again where it's not the most profitable decision. It's not what's going to drive the most revenue, but it's what's in the best interest of our members. And I think a lot of companies aspire to that. Maybe they set a mission statement where that's inherent in the mission statement, but they don't pay it off. And that's one of the things that makes it easy to come to work every day, is knowing we're putting our customer and our members first.
I love the authenticity in that approach. Greg, tell us about the last few years at USAA. There has been a lot going on in the industry. What are some moments in time that really stand out for you?
Wow. Well, I think as an organization, we've had, I'll first share some of our own internal challenges, and then obviously we know the COVID impacts. So our bank grew very quickly, and it was great capabilities for our members. We're the first bank to really develop deposit capture, mobile deposit capture, great innovation in that space. And, we grew at a rate that I don't think our controls and our processes were equipped for. And as the OCC and the Fed came in and looked at our underlying processes, they said, hey, there's some concern here. So we had to kind of slow our growth in the bank to make sure that we were operating in a very diligent way. And that allowed us to take our foot off of the gas from a growth perspective in the bank and focus more on building and transforming to a sustainable infrastructure that we can scale for in the future. So I'd say that was one big challenge that was facing us, and that was pre-COVID. Obviously, when COVID impacted all of us, it had a huge impact on many of our members, obviously our employees. We have 35,000 employees, and we were deployed 98% remote within 2 weeks, which was unheard of. We are very much a face-to-face culture, and it was a big technology overhaul and shift for our organization, but it's worked out for the better. The Zoom enablement, Slack, our abilities to work remotely are night and day what they were before COVID. And because members were driving less and getting in fewer accidents, it allowed us to kind of have a pretty strong financial year. We gave a lot of that money right back to our members through dividends because they weren't driving. So we're not going to continue to charge them those premiums. And we're also able to reinvest again in more infrastructure to support digital scale moving forward. So I don't know if you've recently seen, but we just launched a brand new app. It was a little dated. It was 10 years old. But we're excited about the capabilities that we're scaling. I think we're out to about 15% of our members today, really focusing on improving that interface. Justin mentioned, like, our members are not interested in USAA's digital capabilities. They're interested in, like, can we match their other experience, those liquid experiences across other platforms? So, we've really tried to drive personalization to the forefront of that interaction. While we see ourselves as a property and casualty company, most of our members that interact with our app they're doing their banking, right? They want to check their account balances. They want to be able to transfer funds places. So if you have an opportunity, if you are a member, you'll notice through these latest interactions, like, your banking interactions are right up on the forefront. We're also taking things that we call our personalization tiles, where if we know something about you as a member, like, let's say, for example, we've detected that you're not in your normal location, you're traveling somewhere, proactively popping an advice tile or a personalization tile that will say, hey, it looks like you're traveling. Would you like to, ensure that your credit cards are activated for these states or these zip codes, just to kind of take that burden or that pressure off of the member and make it easier for them. So kind of the way that we framed it up is, me as an individual, as a member, tell me what's best for me, what action should I take, and then if at all possible, do it for me. So you just kind of take that burden off of the member and you're able to execute that on their behalf.
Love that member-centric approach. Love that they're your members, not your customers as well. Just all about relating to humans at a human level. Justin, in the last few years from your seat on the stage, where have you seen some really interesting activations kind of bubble up as a result of all these huge external factors that have impacted businesses?
Yeah, I think I think the challenge when you talk about innovative and new and cool ideas is that there's not a category of new ideas. It's just getting better at the categories we've always tried, right? So I could always recognize people in the past, right? But digitally, right? They log in, I know who they are. But now can I recognize them faster? Can I recognize them sooner? Can I recognize them across experiences, right? So that continues to be where a lot of the investment is doing some of the things we've been talking about for 5 to 10 years, just doing it better, right? And then to Greg's point, remembering and recommending things, right? And so I recognize who you are. I remember what you've done with me. I have that context, and I'm now going to recommend things to you that are ultimately relevant, right? To get a bunch of R's. If I have another R, I'll think of it, throw it in here. But that's that's what I'd say. I'd say people are just getting more mature in their kind of usage of tactics. The other thing that they're doing is they're taking advantage of tools like Tealium just to get to put more of their brain space into thinking and being strategic versus manually doing things in a keyboard or pulling data queries or that sort of stuff. So that's the other kind of thing that's being unlocked, right, with our clients is now they're able to be much more strategic. They're able to do the things that excite them. They're able to, where in the past they may have done 10 things, now they can do 1,000, right? Like it's that scale that if you build and use these tools the right way, the way that they work best, then you can start to unlock that creativity in your teams, and then the sky's the limit. I think obviously we're getting a new channel with the metaverse. As marketers, we'll have to see what that means and how that plugs into everything else. So it'll be a new challenge, but obviously the last 10 years has been, how do you bridge digital and physical? How do you bring those experiences together? And that's kind of where USA has been too, right, Greg? Is how do you bridge the amazing member services reps that can't be codified because their tenure and their expertise and their empathy. But how do you try to build something that's digitally sufficient, right, to be on par with what those folks do for the organization? So yeah, I didn't really answer your question, but it's more just how do we do more of this stuff? How do we do more mature versions of it? How do we and then how do we, get as real time as possible, right? If I interact with you in a mobile device and now I call the member services center because something happened, or vice versa, I just talked to a member services rep and now I'm in my mobile device. How do we make sure that the member, in this case for USA, feels heard and feels like you are really serving them and not just giving them whatever the company's trying to give them?
Justin, is it true? Does Accenture hold their all hands in the metaverse?
Yeah. It's a pretty fascinating 2 years in that regard. Obviously, 2 years, the last year's been very, very bad for a lot of people. But for this topic, the metaverse adoption has been just tremendous. I've added 3 or 4 folks just to my team to help with client services, and they all did their onboarding and training inside of the metaverse. So we have a fairly large strategic partnership with Microsoft. We're using their platform in the metaverse, but you could use it in a lot of other platforms. But yeah, I think the latest number is up to maybe 100,000 Oculus headsets. I think the other thing I'll say on the metaverse, because I'm supposed to be a thought leader in this space, I guess, but I just learned that you don't actually need a headset, right? Like Alt VR is a platform we use quite a bit for our internal situations, and you can do it in a browser, right? Just think of it as a much more immersive gaming type experience. And so the use cases are endless. There's marketing use cases where you can advertise in the metaverse. Obviously, there's employee experience, employee engagement use cases. But it's been amazing to see the kind of creative conversations we're already having with clients around, ultimately meeting human needs with this new engagement channel.
We are relaunching USAA mobile app, which was originally first to market in the financial services industry, award-winning. So continued growth and momentum in that realm. What else are you excited about? What else is coming in the future? What's the team thinking about, planning for?
Yeah, well, I think it's awesome that Justin mentioned the metaverse, and we continue to ideate about where we can play and how we can play. We've seen some banking competitors, JP Morgan, Fidelity, they've got a physical presence there. That's something that's up for consideration as well. We're also looking at activations specifically around some of our flagship sponsorship events like the Army Navy game, and ways that we can create those meaningful experiences for those who can't actually go to the games themselves. So as a marketer, those are some exciting things. But as an organization more broadly, I think that building an ecosystem of next best action continues to be at the forefront of things that are most important for our organization. So you can imagine with 3 distinct lines of business, over 150 product lines. What's the next best thing to talk to a member about is always highly debated. Every general manager and product line leader thinks that it should obviously be their products. I selfishly always want to talk about life insurance and our investing solutions, but really building out the engine and the orchestration to be able to not only project and display what that next best option should be for that member in their digital device, but in the call centers, but then also going to off of us and making it more proactive and saying, like, this is how we're going to kind of run our marketing shop. And as we're paying for advertisement on social platforms, here's where we should be spending the dollar trying to target that individual, because we know that that's the next best solution. So I'm most excited about that, and I think we'll be able to start really testing that more fully at the beginning of 2023.
Yeah, Greg, I think if I add to that, one of the a big conversation topic we're having with clients is shifting from KPIs to CPIs, and what we mean. And Gene Cornfield is one of our leaders here. He authored that. It's an HBR article if you're interested in kind of reading more about it. But the idea that you need KPIs to run your business, but you also need CPIs, customer performance indicators, to make sure you're driving the outcomes your customers actually care about. Right. And that's where, to your point, when do we choose an action to present to a member? We need to present the actions that drive the most shared value, right, across the member and the other broader stakeholders, right? And so it's a really good way to frame and think about some of those prioritization challenges when you have a lot of options like a USAA does.
Thank you all. Really excited. I'm actually taking some notes here. I'm like, this is goodness here. I need to take this back to my desk. We have received a handful of questions from the audience that I do want to make sure we can take a little bit of time and get to a few of these. The first question is, how to engage your MSRs to assist with streamlining the member's experience? Greg, I'd assume that one's for you to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll answer 2 ways. First, we've got an MSR lab where we have over 100 MSRs that we're constantly testing and iterating and getting real-time feedback on new capabilities that we're delivering and allowing them to help to shape and influence those outcomes. And they work side by side with the digital experience team so that the member's experience on the digital platform looks the same and they understand what the experience is in the MSR lab. And the second I would say is, being an MSR is a tough job, right? 2 15-minute breaks a day, 30-minute lunch, and back-to-back phone calls. So not a lot of people want to stay in that job for a long time. So we've created some great programs that allow those MSRs to find jobs internally that their skill sets align to. We kind of call it our Eagle Academy, and it allows them to have kind of quote unquote internships in other areas of the company. And eventually they find their way into roles that will help to influence what's being built. I've actually got several folks on my team who spent years in the call center, and the way that they're able to help us shape marketing experiences and marketing campaigns, no one else could do that because they haven't had that same experience as that frontline employee.
Hey, Greg, if I add to that, it's so natural to you. You just don't think to mention it, but it all starts with the mission of USAA, right? Like they truly do care, because the company does an amazing job of orienting and aligning around that, right? And so it starts with the people that you already have in the seats, right?
Yeah, agree.
Okay, I think this next question is probably good for both of you to respond to. What advice do you have for a company struggling to connect their customer data?
And number one is don't boil the ocean, right? Like kind of where I think I said it at the beginning. Let's align on what outcomes we want to drive, that are shared outcomes for customers, the business, employees, et cetera. And then let's define use cases that can drive toward that outcome. And then let's go build out the experience ecosystem, inclusive of the data, et cetera, that drives to that use case. Like the clients that struggle are the clients that are trying to bite off too many different use cases at once. Because again, it's the old waterfall way of doing a transformation was you got to build all these layers fully, then add to them, and then add to them and add to them. And if you do that, you'll never execute a use case. You'll never execute an experience. So you need to architect it in a way that you can add to it in the future. But you also need to be intentional to say, hey, if we focus here for the next 3 months or 6 months or whatever, we can actually go run this real experience, this real treatment, this real campaign, whatever it is, and market. So I would say, be business focused and use case focused.
What would you add to that, Greg?
Yeah, the only thing I would add is you're going to get what you measure, right? So put something on a scorecard that everyone's aligned to that forces that function. And for us, it's something as simple as Net Promoter Score. And like every single employee is going to, have a portion of their bonus tied to USAA's Net Promoter Score. And, that forces the focus to be on the member and on the outcomes that we're driving in the best interest of the member, which to Justin's point, it allows you to anchor the key outcomes and the use cases to drive towards improving that NPS score.
Love that. Okay, another question I think what we'll close us out with, because it's a little bit more aspirational. What are some of your favorite experiences that you're providing for your members? And then Justin, I'd like for you to add to that if you see any other experiences, whether it be USAA or other financial services companies as well.
Yeah, sure. So I think, we've had a lot of great experiences that we've launched over the years. I think that one of the newer ones, and it's really more tied to behavioral driving. We just recently acquired a startup, Nobler, and have incorporated them into the USAA family, because we know that user-based insurance is like where people are going. The way the driving behaviors are changing so much. So I would say that experience, like looking for ways to match the intent of how our members want to interact with us, and not trying to force our own manufactured products and services down their throat. That's really critical, right? And adopting to that external environment. So I guess that's the one I'll highlight.
Anything you'd on that, Justin?
Yeah, well, Greg and I don't talk about our other partners in front of each other, Lauren. So I'm going to give a USAA one. So one of the things we did on our team is we tried to start. This is adopting to what USAA does. We tried to start every meeting with a mission moment. And one of the senior leaders on our team, her son called in to really go through, he's a USA member, to go through the process of getting a auto loan. And the end result is the person on the other phone who makes money by getting him an auto loan and makes money by then getting him an auto insurance policy said, don't go do it. Said, hey, when we look at what you've said your goals are, your objectives are, what your financial situation is, we recommend you wait. or we recommend you get something cheaper. We can approve you for that. Like it's your decision, but we really do recommend you think twice about this. And this senior team member, the mom, she was extremely grateful that her son got that kind of treatment and service and experience, and ultimately the son benefited from it too. So I mean, that's, it's not a mobile pop-up ad, right? Like, but that's the sort of thing that I think is kind of tying all this together. How can you help your member, your customer, really achieve their success and joint success with you?
That's a truly like heartwarming, memorable experience. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Justin.
Absolutely.
Well, this has just been such a fun conversation. So I have learned a ton. I know the audience has as well. Really just value both of your partnerships to the nth degree. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today at DV. And I know everybody is giving you a huge round of applause. We just can't see it.
Thanks so much, Lauren.
Yeah, my pleasure. Appreciate it.